I arrived in Ireland in 2019, September 2019,
Okay.
just prior to the onset of COVID. And I arrived here from South Africa on a scholarship to do my master's in Ireland.
Okay.
So I was awarded a full scholarship to do my master's with Irish Aid, and I was one of 16 South Africans who got awarded the scholarship. Because you then get to choose where you want to study, what your area of specialty is. So my background is social work, so I'm a social worker by profession. So my master's that I chose to do at IT Carlo was in child, youth, and family studies.
Okay.
And so I was a professional. I was working for the University of Cape Town, full-time job. I was a career development consultant for the university. Um, and I literally left everything, sold my car, my home, my left my three dogs with my mother.
Oh my goodness.
I just turned 39. So everyone thought, is this what happens when you're on the cusp of 40? Like you have a brain fart or something and you just go mad. And I literally gave up a full-time job and benefits, medical and all those
Mhm.
kinds of things to become a student again at age 39. And so coming to Ireland was huge for me. I'd seen giving up so much, your
Mhm.
comfort zone. I didn't know anyone in Ireland. No, there's no family members, no friends here, nothing. And so then to my surprise, then having to complete the masters during a period of COVID and being in Carlo, and so most of the South Africans, they all banded together to and studied at the bigger universities like UCD,
Mhm.
Trinity, Limerick, Galway. I was the only out of 16 to study at Carlo. So you can
Okay.
imagine I didn't have no support
So
system,
network. Mhm.
no network, no familiarity. Also being in a small town where there's not many people that look like me,
Mhm.
and just experiencing what they call the Black Square Summer of 2020 with Black Lives Matter, also during the pandemic,
Yeah.
being a person of color in a small Irish town trying to do a master's. It was really isolating. And so for me, my mental health really suffered,
Mhm. Okay.
because not only was I trying to manage just being away from home, not having a family base or a support system.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I was living in the student accommodation, which had Wi-Fi, and
Okay.
so I was able to connect. But one of the things that I wanted to mention about that was that during this time, just when the onset started in March, the
Mhm.
scholarship had offered to send us back home so that we could do our masters,
Okay. Remotely.
remotely at home. But what the key thing here is that there's very few of us that actually took up that offer, because I don't come from a well-off area and we don't have Wi-Fi in our house.
Okay.
So I decided to stay here purely because of the resources. Whereas back home, I wouldn't have had access to Wi-Fi. You'd have
Yes.
to buy data, which is expensive. My mom had lost a job. My dad wasn't working. I had then decided to go and quit my job and become a student in a
Mhm.
foreign country. So there was a lot of pressure. And for me, I felt like such an alien, because I felt like no one could relate to me,
Mhm.
because most of the students in my class, my classmates, they were all Irish. So
Mhm.
they all went back home to Waterford, to Wexford, wherever they were based, or they went home. Um, I didn't have any international students in my
Okay.
class. I was the only international student.
Wow.
So, and also all the international students that were at the college, they were like in bigger groups. Like you have a big cohort of Indians, big cohort of Chinese. Um, it just felt like no one understood me. I was
Mhm.
also a mature student.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing with being mixed race, I couldn't really fit in with like the black students, which is weird because back home it doesn't really matter. Whereas over here, I just felt like I couldn't fit in with them. I was too light to be black. I was too dark to be white. So
Okay.
that's why I said like that time brought up a lot of themes for me
Yes.
in terms of identity, in terms of belonging, financial resources, or the ability to connect meant,
Mhm.
because I mean I missed my family, but I couldn't be with them because they didn't have Wi-Fi. So
Mhm.
that meant I had to stay here so I could finish the masters, because that's why I came here. otherwise it would have been in vain, you know. So a lot of that for me was just, it was really stressful.
Yeah.
And
Big change on, it was the big
big
change of
change,
COVID
yeah,
on top of the big change of moving to another country. Yeah.
exactly. And then realizing how you're not part of something. So for example, making sure, like, the fear, that was the thing. And it was fear of even getting COVID, because I don't have access to a medical card. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, how much does the doctor charge? The doctors weren't taking walk-ins, if you remember. You couldn't just
Yes.
go because they were all scared. So how do you get an appointment? I didn't even know who the doctors were, because you had to be recommended from the college, and the college was closed. Of that, I feel like people's reactions really didn't take cognizance of the individual that was experiencing things, and they all just lumped people together. So the support that I got, to be honest with you, wasn't in Ireland, it was back home.
Okay.
I got a lot of people checking in on me from back home. My classmates, because we couldn't see each other during COVID, they would obviously schedule Zoom dates with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I joined a local church when I moved to Carlo. So the church members would check in on me.
Great.
They provided some form of, support. When it was Easter, they would put the Easter egg on your doorstep, because I mean we couldn't be in contact with
Mm-hmm.
people and all those things. So there was that kind of support, but the support that you thought you would get, I didn't get, So that kind of, it was a hurtful time,
I
and very
understand.
lonely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you had to experience that, because I can
Mhm.
imagine, you know, for a lot of people, older people, or people with chronic illnesses, they were considered vulnerable, but there was
Mm,
probably a lot of people like yourself who weren't
mm,
considered and who weren't
mm,
helped
mm.
enough.
Yeah. And
Um,
also, just to, like I said, to add in the other layer of the 2020, with the Black Lives Matter thing, the
mhm,
George Kensho murder, it incited a lot of things. So now already there's some narrow-minded people within the space you live in, and they true colors kind of come out. And it's not to say everyone, because it wasn't everyone, but it was just like these few bad experiences, like people
okay.
touching my hair,
Oh,
or saying disparaging remarks, like, oh, your skin, like remarking on skin color, or so add that in. It was
mhm,
just like so many things that I think I got really angry, but it was mainly hurt,
mhm,
and just constantly made to feel like you have to fight for a place
mhm,
in a space that you really want to, that you're contributing to,
mhm,
but that's making it hard, and even more so in a pandemic where the lack of resources were highlighted, or
mhm.
or the access to resources were highlighted, and the barriers thereof, for me, was at least highlighted. So I do also recognize, like, I had some form of privilege in that I can speak English, I can
Mhm.
navigate things. But if I was experiencing some things like this, what were others experiencing, that came from other places? English wasn't their first language, how were they navigating the system, the space
Mhm.
that they're in, the housing thing? We couldn't live so many people in a house, people were moved out. It just felt like the world's problems were just
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
And do you feel that there's been any lessons that you've learned that have maybe helped improve your work-life balance or digital well-being from your experience?
I definitely feel that for me, what has improved is reaching out and speaking up,
Okay.
in terms of just setting boundaries. Like at the moment, with things opening up. So this is my second job in Ireland. The first job that I had, I was working in County Tipperary, and it was still in the pandemic. So it was my first ever job in Ireland, was like done online like this.
Okay.
And even that was so alienating. I never met my team. I never met my colleagues. I met them on the last day of my job when I resigned.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And for me, because it was a case of me wanting to prove I can do this job, and also being so aware that I am an other, like I was the first non-EU, non-Irish person of color that they've employed, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on me to perform. And it was also the first time they had this role in the organization. So I felt like there was a lot of pressure. So I did, to be honest with you, I spent a lot more time online doing my job because I was living in Tipperary. Like, what do you do there? There's really nothing to do during a pandemic, you know? So I was constantly on my laptop, on my phone, engaging, making sure I was available. But that meant that I never established boundaries. That meant that I was always accessible. I was always around to answer a question no matter what time. And that made me more angry because I'm like, not at them, but at myself for like,
Okay.
why aren't you advocating for yourself more in terms of setting a boundary? Whereas over here with this one now, I'm very fortunate to now work in an organization where we have sort of like a hybrid system where you can work online, like at home and in the office.
Great. Okay.
So I
And
get
what kind
to,
of percentage are you doing with that? Is it
so I at least 3 days in
okay?
the office and 2 days at home.
Okay.
And I find I I listen and I trust my instinct a bit more with regards to what is it that I need today. Do I need social engagement? Like I mean, I'm not saying I come to work to have a social party, but to have presence. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Where, or do I need a time where I just want to focus and attend to my emails and my admin and, you know, report
Yes.
writing and all those things. And if I have that opportunity or the space to do so, then I will stay at home because I have a manager that's been so flexible with regards to noticing that the office is does get quite crowded. So in order to manage things, let's do work on a hybrid model. You
Okay.
know what I mean? So that's kind of really helped in terms of taking that offer up, because previously I would be like coming into work and all the time.